I do like this. Yes, it works. Good morning, everyone. And indeed, the conversation that we're going to have right now is a very good bridge between what Sebastian was saying and what you will hear in the rest of today and tomorrow. Because we will not be talking about a certain framework that will solve all your problems. We will not be talking about, in the next 30 to 35 minutes, about the pipelines and ways to improve the pipelines if they can be improved. But we'll be talking about the way how your teams can be organized in a way that will enable exactly what Sebastian was saying, the flow and the reduction of complexity. My name is Anna. I'm an organizational coach. I come to you from Antwerp, the city of diamonds in Belgium. And usually, when I say that I'm an organizational coach, people think that I will either sell them Scrum, or I will tell them how to give feedback and why trust is the most important thing in your teams. Indeed, certain way of working, certain tools, certain framework can be helpful. Indeed, certain way to give feedback or to communicate better is also helpful. However, what I do actually every day is that I work with development teams without telling them how to do their job, but with a lot of emphasis on the environment where they have to do that job. And for many organizations who hire people like me, the door through which they want to start the transformation is often called something framework. Can be less, can be scaled agile framework, can be something else that they know. The picture that you see here is taken from one of the not so early but not so late versions of scaled agile framework, a thing that we in coaching community will love to hate. And I want to show you where in that framework where DevOps is. And you can see that indeed there is a space where all of the good practices are supposed to reconcile and are supposed to help you. And all this was not always like that, and you've heard a little bit of history lesson from Sebastian, and I will build on that. And I will tell you that one thing that organizations love to do if they want to use certain framework is that they love to do assessments. And people like me, traditionally, we also love to do assessments on multiple dimensions on how your organization can be working. Everything that you see here on the slide is the traditional way how a specialist would assess if your practices are actually modern, helpful, and if they can be scaled. Another thing that a specialist would do is something that actually is not that so modern. So the shift-left approach was coined as a term in 2001. 2001, 25 years ago, this was the moment when people like me started saying that there is something wrong, and they specifically said wrong with the way how you've been working. And they used the picture that you see here on the slide to demonstrate what exactly was wrong. The shift-left approach, 2001, was supposed to fix the long feedback, right? The shift-left approach was supposed to bring closer people who develop to people who will then validate how it's developed. Shift-left approach was supposed to make sure that you have the tools to build what you're building with actual humans in mind. And three first practices that existed since 2001 were feature testing and the way how we do the testing, behavioral driven development, TDD, and two others that are not here on the slide. 2001. A little bit later, 2019, we started hearing this DevOps thing, exactly as Sebastian also explained. The idea behind was that we have people who write code, right? We have people who develop. We have people who will test it. We have people who will make sure that it's going to production. All these people now suddenly have to collaborate. What's so difficult about it? But actually, what became difficult is that even though the companies actually wanted to transition to shift left, which was coined in 2001, 2019, DevOps, yes, they wanted to do all this. However, the approvals, the gatekeeping systems, special roles have been introduced. The slide that I showed you a second ago, this one, you can see that it's an old slide, right? By how it's made. The picture that I showed you before, I said, this one, I said 2001, right? When I show you this picture, maybe you will think that, yes, it's also something old. Anna again is giving us history lesson. But no, this picture is last year. One of the companies that I worked with told me to establish this. Last year, we already had AI. We already had all of the wonderful ways how we can be organized. We already had so many books, so many approaches, and yet we still had to establish all of these approval systems. Last year, in September, I participated in Agile Tour Vienna, and one of the speakers there was one of my role models in Agile and in coaching community, Goiko Atik. He wrote a lot of books, but two very important books for the conversation today would be Impact Mapping and Specification by Example. And his talk was this, that Agile is dead. However, not Agile as philosophy, but Agile as a brand. There's been time where you could stamp the word Agile on literally anything, and you could sell, right? Or you could be more prominent amongst your competitors, you could be more upfront thinking, and so on and so on. However, right now, Agile has lost its popularity, Agile has lost its charm, and Agile became all this. So what do? We reorganize in a little bit different way. And in order to reorganize in a little bit different way, we need to understand how are we organized today. And in order to understand how are we organized today, I want to invite you to take your phones, scan the QR code that you see here, and start a little bit conversation with me. So the way how some companies are organized is that DevOps is not a set of practices, but is a team. And architecture is not maybe a group of people, but it's, again, a board or a place where you will send your tickets to. And if this is the case, what do you think? What does it mean for organizations? So the statement here, which I want to invite you to continue, is, if DevOps is a team you send tickets to, and architecture is a board you wait for, then what does it mean? It means that we will wait for ages. It means epic fail. It means that others will finish our work. I add the word our for myself. Yeah, it means a lot of approvals. It means everything approval. It means frustration for people who are on the beginning of all this. Multiple rounds of discussions, approval hell, weeks, bottleneck, different priorities, everybody waits. You'll be waiting forever, months of discussions. You lose connection to value, for God's sake, right? Agility was supposed to be all about value. And this is the question that we will ask ourselves, how are we organized in the next minutes of my talk? So we understand that this is not the way to go, right? What is the way to go? So the conversation that we are starting here should start at the foundation why these people do this. So if I go back, and if we look at all this, none of you wrote that it means that there are bad people in the organization, right? Everybody who receives your ticket or who does the gatekeeping, all these people, they are not evil. They are gatekeeping something because of something else. Usually what happens is that we are afraid, we as an organization, we are afraid of multiple things. Of compliance, of security breaches, of outrages. We cannot scale to the extent that we wanted, or we are afraid to scale, or we are afraid, we as humans, we are afraid of being blamed. How many times have you heard that something happened because of QA people did not validate, security approved something wrong, compliance team did not check something? We are afraid of being blamed, and thus we turn into these gatekeepers. We do this not because we are bad, we do this because we are afraid of something. And when it comes to us being afraid, maybe there was a book, or maybe there was an idea that was supposed to fix all this. 2019, the book Team Topologies was written and published and started yet another revolution. Team Topologies, as an idea, brought us the notion of enabling teams. The idea of enabling team was that you have a group of people who are gathered together not because of a certain component that they own, not because of certain skill that they possess, not because of certain application that they have to control, but enabling team is that team that temporarily gathers together to help other teams succeed. 2019, I work with some clients who ask me to do team topology-inspired transformation right now in 2026. So it takes some time for it to start, but maybe some companies actually start the conversation. Yet, there was something fundamentally wrong with this idea. There is one specific word that you see on this slide which does not help. How do you think which word that is? Temporarily. Thank you. Because what do you mean? Everybody suffers, and then suddenly somebody sends a request, raises a flag, and then how is it called? The Avengers team, they come together, they save you, and then they what, disappear? And then what, we suffer again? Team topologies started something good. The problem is that a lot of companies, they stopped there. But there is a way to make it even better. When we talk about how we can make it better, we need to understand what do we want to make better. So we heard something about DevOps as a set of practices instead of just asking people to collaborate. But we also need to understand something about architecture. A lot of companies, they think that architecture is diagrams, and the person who is called enterprise architect is supposed to produce HLDs, approve LLDs, and that's it. Architecture is not supposed to be diagrams. Architecture is supposed to be a set of constraints which enable you. Now let's look at this idea, enabling constraints. I will ask you to take your phones once again and think about this question. What is the most valuable part of your morning? You can think about today's morning, or you can think about any other morning. But what makes your morning valuable? What's the best part of the morning? Scan the QR code, please. And let's talk a little bit more. What part of your morning is the most valuable part? People online, I think you're even better positioned than we are here in the room, because I keep on breaking the flow of the screen, but you can scan QR code at your own convenience. So what's the most valuable part of our morning? Breakfast, exercise, a calm coffee time, skiing, before opening the Slack, wake up healthy, sleep on, shower, freedom, freshness of mind, again coffee, meditation, no sync meeting, planning the day. What else did I see? Early bird freedom, sports. Maybe from the picture before you understand what's my important part, right? So the cat that was doing some bodybuilding. All this gives value to your morning, right? Let's focus on the word value. We are here talking about value. All this is possible because of a certain constraint. Some of you say, I can do my planning in peace. I can have my coffee in peace. What constraint is it? That's the time, because you know if you wake up 2 minutes before your first call or 2 minutes before you have to get your kids to school, 2 minutes will not give you your peaceful time, right? So you understand that you need to wake up at least maybe 30, 40, 1 hour earlier. That's the constraint that helps you. Some people who wrote things like meditation, shower, or gym, you also know that if you don't go to gym in the morning, you will not go in the evening because you will be tired. So what's the constraint here? Your mental state in the evening. People who wrote things like meditation especially, the constraint is that it has to be done privately, right? So again, there is something that enables you. The idea of enabling constraints, that's something that also is not new. First of all, it was coined by theory of constraints many, many years ago, somewhere in the 80s, and it goes literally like this. An enabling constraint is that constraint that shapes the space of possible actions. Why? So that useful patterns can emerge. The picture that you see here is actually illustration from the theory of constraints, but we want to take it a little bit further. Frameworks like Kinevin and one that I will explain a little bit later, they built on that. in order for the good things to emerge and for your teams to actually collaborate, you don't need to hire coaches and teach them how to give feedback. You need to create certain structure where this will be possible. When it comes to the word structure, same idea as with the word constraints. Some people, they don't like these words, right? We hear the word constraints and we are like, oh, I'm going to be limited, I don't like this. Or when I say to some teams, we need to be structured, they think, oh my God, policies, procedures, waiting. No. I want to introduce you to the word structure as something that can actually enable you to be your best. Think about a habit that was very difficult for you to pick up. For example, those of you who wrote gym or meditation in the morning, I will make a guess that it was not that easy to pick up. Or think about a habit that you wanted to stop. For example, if you wanted to stop smoking. When you start either picking up a habit or kicking the habit, you have a certain mindset, right? The mindset is, this is healthy for me. I want to live longer. You believe in something. You can have your own mindset, but my point is that mindset is the foundation of why you do things. And then the structure that you have above your mindset will either solidify the mindset or it will nudge your behavior. Now let's take this and let's connect it to my daily work. I come to organizations and I want to show them that there is the better way, right? And I have seen so many people, so many developers, so many people from service teams, when they hear the word coach, they have allergic reaction to it. If, for God forbid, I say Agile coach, that's why I'm an organizational coach, because I'm framework agnostic, but when they hear that, even more bad behavior comes up, right? It's not because of the message I give. Sometimes these people don't even give me a chance to give them any message. They have the mindset. The mindset can be, all Agile is BS, that's dead. That's the mindset, right? I cannot change their mindset. However, what I can do, I can see what kind of structure enabled that mindset. Because indeed, maybe every single coach they saw before me, maybe all of these people, they were different. Indeed, maybe when they started to reorganize in a certain way, it led to many meetings without being any better meetings. I cannot change anybody's mindset, and I assume that you also don't have that goal in mind. What we have to do, we have to observe the behavior of the people, or the systems, which are made by people, and then we need to understand what kind of structure solidifies the mindset, or not just the behavior. When we talk about structure, we understood is good, right? But now we need to understand actually how we make the structure, and this is the best part. The framework, the tool, the philosophy, the concept that I want to introduce to you today is not yet another book. It's something that I have seen working. It's something that I do, and I know people who also do that, and they have results. This bigger picture is the way to make sure that you have the flow, you reduce the cognitive load, and while being framework agnostic, you find a way of working which actually enables you. And this thing is called org topologies, and it goes like this. I will first introduce everything inside it, and then I will tell you how to actually work with it. So the framework asks us to look at two dimensions. Dimension, which is the horizontal one, is called scope of skills mandate. Basically, when you think of your team, what kind of skills your team has? We are a team of backend people. We do things perfectly. We are only backend. Then you are closer to the left. Or we are fully equipped end-to-end team. We can do everything on by our own, and we can even ship to production on our own. Then your scope of skills goes a little bit to the right. Now look at the dimension, which is the vertical one. You have scope of work mandate. What are you producing as a team? Are you producing a set of tasks? Are you producing a set of features? Are you producing something that builds the whole project, or are you focused on the whole business? By combining these two dimensions, we can position ourselves in a certain archetype. And the first archetype that I want you to think of, because that's the most popular one, is called doing, or directing, which are combined in resource topology. If you have people in your organization who are called resource managers, project managers, project coordinators, if those people are tasked to make sure that every resource is utilized, then you're dead. Another way to think of it, by the way, speaking of resource utilized, I was once coaching a huge financial organization, and there was one product owner, his name was Thomas, and he kept on repeating. This was literally his statement. Every resource has to be utilized. And that Thomas, he was maybe in his early 30s, and I kept, like my mind was breaking. Where did you get it from? Every resource has to be utilized. He was a very good example of this. So the resource topology means that you have a certain conveyor, you have a certain line of work, and you need to make sure that every item which has to be built in a certain space of that conveyor is built to its best capabilities. Practically, it means exactly what Sebastian was talking about. Practically, it means silos, because we don't communicate. I do my backend, I do it perfectly. I do my front end, I do it perfectly. I test something, whatever you tell me to do, I do it perfectly. Does anybody check the requirements, collaborates together? No, we don't need to. So that's your resource topology. What happens to DevOps and resource topologies? Well, DevOps, they are the teams that you send tickets to, because they are in their own doing silo. And what happens, exactly what you wrote answering to my question, what practically happens is that DevOps becomes a queue. But that's the beginning. One thing to make it better is to create something which is called quote-unquote feature factory, which is also not the best way to be organized, but it's already a very good step from being resource topologies. I currently work with multiple companies who are this, and they are very proud that they are this. It took them years to actually establish this kind of a way of working. There is another step that they can take, but this is already very good. Feature factory means that your delivery units can produce value faster. They can almost ship it, but they need somebody to actually, there is another gate or maybe ops team who will actually push it to production. One thing that we need to know about resource topology compared to delivery topology is that here in the delivery topology, we don't care about resources. We care about outputs, and we want to produce as much as possible. That's why very often it's called feature factory. What happens to DevOps here? Also connected a little bit to what Sebastian was saying. In this topology, in the delivery topology, because we want to deliver fast, we create pipelines. We also focus on the environments, and we create certain patterns. Well, the way how it can stop working is when you will end up having multiple teams who will be able to produce together, but none of them will be able to actually ship to production, so you will have multiple mini resources. And there is the best way. And the best way is called adaptive topology. If you look closer at the picture, at the frame where it is, you see that the scopes of skills mandate is max, and it's complete. I will explain in a second what it means. And you will see that these companies, they're focused on outcomes instead of outputs. That's the best way to be, because it enables even AI to work with you. AI is also a unit. And your question should be, where do we establish this unit, and how do we embed this unit in our way of working? Think again about the word unit. When you're organizing your teams, when you're creating the environment where those teams will operate, who are you building this for? What is your unit? How complete, how independent those units can be, and do they have any opportunity to actually collaborate? What happens in DevOps, or to DevOps, in this case, in adaptive topologies, is that you create the platforms and you accelerate the way to experiment on those platforms and to be that next step that also Sebastian was talking about. Now your question can be, what can go wrong? Well, what can go wrong is that too much freedom without any structure will also give you troubles. How do we do structure? we already remember, we have mindset, structure, and behavior. And structure is a set of constraints, which are actually enabling constraints that you have to establish. Take your phones one last time, and let's try to play a little bit with this tool to understand where your organization currently is. On the next slide, I will explain how you can map your current way of working, your current organization, to one of these topologies. So the way to look at it is the following. You have to think about the mission or the value that your organization is creating. For example, you are not simply making a banking application. There is a certain reason why you're making the banking application. If you work in NGO, you don't work in NGO just to work in NGO. There is a certain mission, there is a certain fundament, there's a certain reason why this NGO was created. So think about that. That's the first thing to have in mind. Second thing to have in mind is thinking what units exist in this organization. And I'm giving you 4 types of units. You have yourself as a unit. You have the team. I still call it a unit because maybe you're not called a team, maybe you're called a squad or something else. But think about that little bit bigger part of organization where you are. Then think about AI as it is today in your organization. And then think about your manager. So you have 4 units to think of when you're doing this exercise. Think about yourself. Think about unit where you are, your team, your squad, your department, your work stream, whatever it's called. Then think about AI in its current state in your organization, and then think about your manager. You're thinking about all of this and trying to answer 2 questions. First question, which will help you understand if you are incomplete or complete. Can you not only produce something which is valuable, but actually can you deliver this valuable thing to the customer on your own, if you're thinking about yourself, or your unit, or the other 2 options? If you can produce and deliver and ship it, and the customer will take it from your hands, then you are completer, so you're on the right side. If you can do everything, but then somebody has to push it to production, then you're a little bit incomplete, so you go on the left. Then think about outputs versus outcomes. If you will produce more of this thing that you're producing, will your customer get any benefits? If not, it's outputs. For example, your manager, you have to also think about your manager. For example, your manager is producing a lot of documents. Those are outputs that they are focused on. Okay, your manager can produce 55 times more documents. Will there be any result, any benefit for the end user, for the customer? Most probably not. Which makes your manager, in my example, focused on outputs instead of outcomes. If you are producing something that if you will make it more, the customer will benefit, then you're focused on outcomes. For example, one of the things that I do, I produce workshops. If I produce more workshops, there is the benefit to the customer because they will embed something, they will learn something. So speaking of that, I'm more outcome focused than output. Those are examples how you can answer these questions. But in order to understand where we are, we need to look at the company's mission or the value that it's supposed to give. Step 1. Step 2. You think about all these units that you see right now on the slide and map them somewhere. Step 3, you need to see where the majority would be. Once you have performed this task, you will understand which topology you are. So this is right now the tool that you can use in your spare time. I'm going to change the slide. I see that people who have already played with it, well, 30 seconds ago, almost everything was inadaptive. So I was about to say that we are a very happy organization, but also the way how this specific slide is made, you are meddling with each other's scores. So this thing is something that you can do on your own. You can still use the same QR code if you're going to use it today, because I assume that multiple people, you change each other's scores. But that's the way to look at it. Once you understand where the majority of your units would be, well, majority 3 out of 4, That's your topology. What do we do once we understand where we are? Understanding where we are is half of the problem, right? Then we need to understand the second half of the problem, and then we need to get to the solution. So the way how I would end this statement that I've given you in the beginning, I would say that if DevOps is a team you send tickets to, and if architecture is a board that has to approve some things, you are still in industrial mode. You are still in that factory line, in that conveyor belt, on that conveyor belt, where you have to ship things. I am doing my backend, I am perfect. And it doesn't mean that you are at fault. It means that your organization decided to focus on resources and their utilization instead of the value. One thing that we can try to do, we can at least make first steps, is that we can try to create an environment where everybody will feel the responsibility for the security, because we are still talking about security here, right? And everybody will understand what it actually means. One thing that I have done with one of my clients was a very big success. We started from organizational topologies. We started way, way, way back, because one thing that they wanted me to do, they said, Anna, we want you to do Scrum for us. And I was like, why do you need Scrum? Because it's popular. Well, not anymore. So what do you want? And in this conversation, I took them way, way, way back to shift left and everything else. And we have understood that it's not Agile or Scrum that they wanted. They wanted that everybody, because it was NGO, it was very much high compliance, high risk situation. And so what they ultimately wanted, they did not want Scrum or Agile or something. They wanted everybody to understand that security is important. And so what we have done is that we have removed this person. Well, not the person itself, but the role. Because indeed, traditionally, we have a security officer or a security office. And those people, traditionally, they are the gatekeepers of your projects. And they do a very good job in making you wait. What we have done is that we have created this practice, DevSecOps, where we said that security requirements have to be embedded in the normal development lifecycle. So the same shift left, but also with security. Security is not, especially that security office, those were very good people, very modern, very nice to hang out with. They were not against everybody else in the organization, but they were perceived like that. What we have done, we have reorganized the teams in a way that certain work around security practices was embedded since the beginning of writing requirements. And we called it DevSecOps. This is not the term I coined, this is the term that I picked up, and I liked it because it made sense. When we see at what is our scope of work, we should look not at what we have to do, but at what we can do. And one thing that I want to give you at the end of my talk is that if you want to change how people behave, don't even think about changing their mindset, it's impossible. But what you can do, you can change how people interact. And by changing how people interact, you will see that they either will behave differently, or maybe fundamentally their mindset will change as a result. But not because you told them so, not because you hired a coach, not because you forced them to go to a conference or to listen to a webinar, but because of their interactions every day. They will shift left, right, center, wherever, but they will change how people behave. And that's the thing that you should be focused on. Thank you for being here with Sebastian and me this morning. I hope you enjoyed. You have one tool, one idea, and a little bit of history lesson from us. And have a productive start and continuation of the conference.
Thank you so much, Anna. I think it's really great because you really point us to the, let's say, to the essence of things we are doing here. Yeah. So really great talk. Thank you so much. Now we open up the conference. Yeah. Go to the sessions. Grab as many sessions as you can. Please also visit the exhibition over there. The exhibition area is also the place where you will get your coffee breaks and lunch break, of course. And we meet all of together here later for the next keynote right after lunch break. See you later.
Yay.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.